This band? I like this band. I wrote it down so I don't forget who they are. Oh, I remember. Fucking
We're back. We're back here with Metal Horror Madness with one of the hardest in this scene. His Brian, you know why his back hurts? He's been carrying this scene for decades. He's freaking signed up right now. Every artist you went to go see, every artist you think you want to go see, you've heard. This man has signed them. Without be running around a concert yelling, this is metal royalty. Metal royalty, and it doesn't stop. He keeps current. He reels in bands like 200 Stab Wound. It's crazy. I don't know how you do it, sir. I don't know how you do it, but it's an honor. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I've been following you and your label. I read about you and your label in Metal Maniacs magazine back in the 90s, and you're still at the top of the scene. You're still signing the biggest bands out there. You're still on top of everything. Brian, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for the great intro there. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And I look at Metal Blade and I look at what you've accomplished, and that's what I had to ask you is how do you stay on top of the scene year after year? It's always changing. You know how fickle metal fans are.
I mean, look, I still love the music just as much as I always have. Honestly, at Melblade, I'm surrounded by an amazing amount of phenomenal employees who are also all fans of the music too. So we all get along. And the last, it's funny, I did Eddie Trunk's radio show yesterday, and somebody called in and said, I'm really worried about the state of metal, and I don't know if there's anything going on. I was like, you don't need to be worried, my friend. There's a million bands out there, and I think the state of metal is probably better than it's been in a long time. I'm super excited about it, just because we keep getting all these. I mean, I wish we could sign all of them because there's so many great new bands coming out. But yeah, the scene's in really good shape. There's a lot of younger bands, like you mentioned, 200 Stab Wounds. Kids in their 20s that are doing something a little bit different that have a great buzz on them. And there's a French band Igor that's out there that's doing. I mean, there's a lot of new bands and a lot of music coming up, and not just on our label. Bands like Lorna Shore and you Kubla Khan, and there's so many of them.
So many bands, and that's what I always loved about you. You always stayed in the scene, and I do notice it breaks my heart sometimes to watch people not stay in the scene. I watch people that talk about. I've talked to people that tell me I haven't listened to something since 1991, and I'm like, you're missing out. You are missing out because even some of the legacy bands, right? When the scene lightened up for a little bit, and everybody was trying to be the Metallica Black Album at one time, and a lot of the thrash bands, and then they came back harder. They came back harder than ever, and they're still out there bringing it at 1,000,000%. So I think that's such a great message to let people know is you can't lose touch with it. Times change, you got to change with them.
Yeah, but I get it. Life, as you get older, life comes in, you've got a wife and you got kids and you got
Yep.
it's not as easy as it was when you're younger. And it's not that easy to find new music too. That's, I think, the biggest problem. We don't have an MTV or a MySpace or that singular place that you go. They go, okay, if I go here, I know I'm going to listen to really good music. I mean, there are playlists, on whether it's Spotify or Apple Music that are really good, but it's not that easy to find the new stuff. And, I get it. Like I have friends that, spend hours on YouTube and all these places looking for new bands. Even I don't. They asked me, I haven't even heard of this band. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. But I will say that my new favorite place to find music, and I found quite a few bands that I'd never heard of before, including one that we actually ended up signing. And I actually first encountered you on here is on TikTok, which TikTok is a great way to find new music. And like I said, I found so many bands that I never heard of that I really love. And we found this one band called Nine Treasures, this Mongolian, China heavy metal band that I found on TikTok, and we ended up signing them. So it's kind of crazy. So that's a good way to find music. But yeah, it's there's a lot of good stuff out there. And I think the good news is that the demographic is also getting younger as well, which that's what makes me happy. Is like, okay, good. We're not going to age out necessarily because, the new fans are coming in that are in their 20s and 30s now.
It's so true. And yeah, TikTok, I mean, that's what, and I mean, in all fairness, when I say too, like I did lose touch for a little bit. I'm 48. In my 30s, life just got me. Life got me, and I noticed I was not checking out any new bands, nothing. And then I was just listening to the same albums, even by the classic bands. Like I wasn't even listening to their new stuff. And when I dived back in, and then especially during the lockdown, that's when Metal Horror Madman was created. I was sitting here going stir crazy. And I'm like, my daughter's like, you'd be good on the internet. Like, you're a lunatic. You'd be fun on there. And it was a funny time, too, because it was a time also where Slayer was very inactive. They were actually dogging them everywhere. Like, I'm like, that's what happened to me. That's what, like, made me go crazy and just get super back into the scene. I'm like, we don't like Slayer now? Like, what world are we living in? And that's where I started doing it and screaming it and just getting in touch. And then all of a sudden I started going, like you did, you're going like, there's a lot of new bands out there. And they're very passionate about this music. And we've been missing out on it. Like, when you go to the traditional radio stations and stuff and they're just playing certain things and you talk to the certain fans, and even I understand business aspects where, legacy bands can't be bringing out every new band. Things have changed, that they got to make sure they're getting fed and everything's going good. But TikTok it's really been a great place. And the other thing I like about it, Brian, is they'll bring back a lot of the band's albums maybe that are being forgotten. All of a sudden you'll see people playing stuff that that they forget about. And you're like, no, all these bands had all these different decades of great music where they changed.
Yeah, and the other, I don't want to forget our good friends over at Sirius XM too. That's another for anybody that's looking to kind of get in there and they don't have time to doom scroll on TikTok or whatever. Yeah, Sirius XM, because whether it's Liquid Metal or Ozzy's Boneyard or whatever it is, they're Octane. They're playing a lot of new music on all those channels. And they're really, really important to our scene. But yeah, the TikTok thing is really interesting because I just started, I'm fascinated by new forms of communication and new apps. And, we were the first metal label ever with a website. And, we were really early on Instagram and Facebook and MySpace and all these things. And I was like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? Because I'm interested in that whole scene. So, TikTok was coming up. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll go on TikTok. And at first it just, there wasn't much there necessarily, but there was enough interesting things. But the one thing that I learned on TikTok is, on Instagram and X and all the others, I've got, tons and tons of followers, but I didn't want to do that on TikTok. I want to just kind of because I like the algorithm. And I feel if I start following way too many people that I'll lose that algorithm because I'm kind of anonymous-ish on there. It's great for not only for bands, but I live in Las Vegas, so I get tons of recommendations on restaurants and places to go in Vegas. I spend a lot of time in Dallas, and so it's a really fun thing to do. But and it's really just to give you a quick story about how important TikTok is. So about a year and a half ago, I think it was, I went to go see Cattle Decapitation and Immolation in Dallas. Shows a good night of theater, sold out. I don't know, 1,200 kids, whatever it was. So I'm talking to the band's average, and they're like, this has been a really interesting tour. This is the first tour that both of us have done in a long time where there's a lot of younger kids coming to the shows. And I said, well, you know why that is? And they go, no, I said TikTok. And they're like, well, we're not on TikTok. Yes, you're not on TikTok, but your fans are on TikTok, and they're the ones, that are interacting and finding bands. Like another crazy story, my girlfriend has a 13-year-old daughter, and her 13-year-old daughter walks in and says, hey, Mom, do you know this band Cannibal Corpse? And she's like, yeah, I've met them before. So huge fan. Her and her four other 13-year-old female friends all became massive Cannibal Corpse fans, and all from TikTok. So, there you go. You're discovering a lot of stuff. It's amazing.
Oh, it's so amazing. And, and that was my goal on there. I have to talk about myself, a Metal Horror Madman. The guy's full of himself. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to take up 1 second of your time, man. I really am.
You're good. You're good.
People that know me know I'm geeking out how I'm holding it together right now. I've worked on myself, everybody. I'm not causing too big of a scene, but it allows when I was like, I'm going to go on there and I'm going to act like I'm 20 years old or 17. And I don't care because metalheads, I'm from that era where like we were loud, we were rowdy, we had fun. We didn't care what anybody thinks. And I'll hear that. And the people will say, because I've had people go like, Madman, you're a phenomenon. Like you've got these kids, 12 to 20. They go nuts for you when you go out. Like it just doesn't make sense. And I started asking them, I started going like, why me? Like, and they go, because we grew up in this era of digital and phones and we're quiet. They go, you go to a place and you make us comfortable. Like you make it okay to start screaming. And I'm like, but that's just what we did back in the day. Like you know what, Brian? Sometimes I feel like I'm like in a in a movie where the guy's from the 80s and he never stopped partying, like he's past his prime, and he comes rolling in and he's still in the Camaro and he's down in PBR tall cans and he's like, we should be ripping chairs out of the venue. I was at Slayer at Hershey Park and security started yelling at me saying I was too loud and vulgar. And I'm like, if this was 1994, they would have burnt this place to the ground. Like, what are you guys talking about? So I love that you're in touch with it. And of course you would be, because like I said, Metal Bleed is as relevant now as it to me. It's even more relevant. Like it's everywhere. It's on top of everything. And you watch people and labels and bands just lose touch over time. And you just never want to see that. And when you said Las Vegas, I wanted to ask you, has that affected your sports team affiliations at all? Has that changed any way you look at hockey or football or?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you, in my opinion, the reason why you're so popular on all these social media things is because you're passionate about the music, and
I am.
that's how you set yourself apart. And that's what interests anybody is you want to see somebody that's passionate about the music, and you, my friend, are very passionate about the music, so it's great.
I really
But
am.
in terms of the sports thing, like, look, I grew up in LA, right? So we're not New York or the East Coast where you adopt a team when you're 2 years old and you're with that team forever, no matter how terrible they are.
Right.
I've never been that guy. I like to
Okay.
watch good sports and good sports
Yeah.
teams. So I decided I was going to leave LA and get out of the traffic and all that mess. I wasn't sure where I was going to live. I had a place in Vegas, a place in Dallas, a place in Tampa, and a place in New York. So I spent a bunch of time in each one, and they all had hockey teams, which is very important to me, of course, my favorite sport. And once Vegas announced that they had a team, I was like, okay. And I really do like Vegas. It's a small town. It's great people here. It's not at all like anyone would think it would be living in Vegas because the Strip and all that nonsense. It's a really great city. A lot of
Right.
entertainment people here. Everybody in the community are just amazing people, and it's like living in a small town, which I never have. I've either been living in LA or spending a lot of time in New York. But I grew up obviously season seat holders were the Kings, but I was a crazy hockey fan. I think I'm the only Southern California hockey fan that liked both the Kings and the Ducks. I had season tickets for both for
Right.
forever. That's fighting words. That's
Yeah.
that rivalry in Southern California is nuts, and those teams and cities still hate each other to this day. But I always like it. But yeah, I like the Golden Knights, although they tend to infuriate me at times with some of the stuff that they do. So, but still, it's fun to go to the games, and I mean, just lucky enough to be here where all of a sudden, I try to tell my friends here in Vegas that this is their first ever foray into any pro sports teams, and it's certainly into
Right.
hockey. I go, this isn't normal. Like you don't just get an expansion team and all of a sudden you're a really good team for the 7, 8, 9 years it's been already. But it's fun.
That's awesome. And again, that's a great attitude to have. And that's why I'm so passionate about music. Like I love diversity in everything. I love bands. I love albums people tell me I'm not supposed to like. People my oldest, he's a huge Kiss fan. I'm like, The Elder, that's my favorite album. He's like, that's not possible. There's no way that could be. I'm like, that's my Exodus, Impact is Imminent. King Diamond, Spider's Lullaby. Like these are all albums I would get in fist fights with people. Sometimes I'm a little too passionate, Brian, a little too passionate, but like music,
All right.
I wear my heart on my sleeve, anyone that knows me. And I am like that with music because everything I've been through in my life, I came from a very abusive upbringing. I've had a really ups and downs in lives, and I did everything my own way. I dropped out of high school because I was always that kind of rebel, but then I got my GED and went to college. I'd always do things. I'd always make sure I was okay in life, but I did everything the hard way. And every time I think of the struggle and things I went through, I could think of music and albums that had come out. And I watched my music heroes go through it in times, right? When the scene was dying, the mainstream scene and the death metal luckily was coming up and replacing everything and just keeping it alive. But which I mean, guys, everybody, right now, okay, you owe this man. You don't know what you owe this man. I'm telling you you owe this man for having an ear for death metal. Because a lot of people, when that came out, said that wasn't music, that was just noise. How could your vocals be like that? And he believed in it, and that genre really kept us afloat because those mid '90s got really rough. And yeah, I've always stayed passionate with it. I was the guy that would be going to the store and go, can you order me, something on CMC Records at this time, but nobody ever heard of. Like, can you order me the new Twisted Sister live album only in Japan? And they would look at me like I was crazy. I'd work my first paycheck, I was 17. I had $222 and I spent like $207 because I was like, I need a few bucks for gas to get back to work. And I bought every CD I could buy. And I love it. And just the memories it brings. And people would say to me like right now, like, is this I'm like, this is me all the time when we start talking about music. Like, because no matter we just had this horrible snowstorm and it's been a hellish week for me. And someone in my family was real in the hospital. And I'm just like, I just do what I did when I sit in the dark room, put the headphones on, and I just start blasting music. And it's just something
Yeah.
magical to me, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. It's always awesome to hear, and that's a lot. Hear a lot of this stuff, and when I'm doing what I'm doing, or bands are doing what they're doing. You're not really thinking about. You're just thinking about making the music and doing it and making sure it's all good and all of these things. And you don't
Right.
really think about what's out there. But it's always great to hear stories about how music's helped so many people through different things. Like even I mentioned my girlfriend's daughter. She was going through a rough time, and she got super into Cannibal Corpse, and they were playing. They didn't play Dallas, but they played Houston. So I got them backstage and everything. They met the band and like changed her life. She's like, yeah, everything's great now, and it's a whole big thing. So it's good. One thing I want to tell you though, as I tell this to a lot of people. So my friend Curtis Duffy, who's a famous chef, Michelin star chef, he has a couple of restaurants in Chicago, Ever and After. He just wrote a book, his autobiography, and his upbringing is one of the most horrific upbringings I've ever seen in my entire life. It's all beatings every day, stuck in a closet. His father killed his mother, then killed himself at 7 when he was 17. It's like it's bad shit, right?
Yeah.
And his story is so incredible because he came through all of that, and he's like this amazing, normal person, the famous chef and everything. So I encourage people to read that book just for the story because it was so inspiring to me. Like, oh man, that guy can get through all this shit. We all can get through stuff. So
Yeah.
just some homework. I'm sorry to give to all you guys, but
No,
but music is great.
That's great to hear, and that's definitely and that's what I try and tell people. Like I mean, the scene we're in, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of people, a lot of these young kids I talk to are from broken homes and they're from abuse and they're being bullied. And I just tell them, you've got to keep going. Like there's nothing special about me. I just always kept going. Like I have my two brothers didn't keep going and they're in bad places and they'll never come out and there's no relation. Because if you embrace the past, and I mean, it goes full circle to the music. If you just get stuck in the past, if you just get stuck in 1986 was the year for metal, 1992 was the year for metal, like that's not a healthy thing. And I talk to people, and I'm just always shocked when it's like you can grow and you can learn, and you shouldn't be at odds with the young people. We were all the young people at one time making this music, making this noise, and and it's just good to, like I said, you've always kept your finger on the pulse like that. I've always noticed too, you take chances with bands. I've seen with different bands you've signed throughout the years, right? And I'm sure, how does that work for you? Like, do you ever get nervous if you're saying we're gonna go all in on this band and paying them and doing the promotions? And I'm sure things have worked out great, and there's been times where they haven't. How do you handle something like that to keep your head in check and know like we got to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just as easy that if I'm passionate about a band or the people at the label are passionate about a band, I mean, we don't really care about a lot of that stuff. I
Okay.
mean, clearly it's a business and you have to run it as a business. You have to be responsible and, you can't push all your chips in on, one band, but we do try to, we've done this long enough now. It's 44 years. You kind of know how to spend and what to spend on different things and how to make things work. It doesn't always work. I mean, the sort of the rate of bands that become hugely successful and the ones that aren't is a pretty big ratio. A lot of it has to do with the behind the scenes stuff if they don't have the right management or the right agents, because you have to ultimately have a team around you to be successful. And that's every band, no matter what genre it is. If you don't have the management, or I equate it to a car. So the car has four wheels, right? So if all four wheels are moving at the direction at the same time, that car is going to go pretty fast. So that means you have to have the label, the manager, the agent, and the lawyer, and the band all on the same page. If everybody's on the same page, that car is going to go really fast. If one of those elements is not on that same page, one out of the tires, basically, it's not going to go anywhere. So that's what you kind of need. And we try to work with bands that have as much of that as possible. Whether manager, an agent, or somebody behind them, because you have to have that.
Right.
But ultimately, we just, it's about the music, and we love the music. And even bands that don't have any of that and we really like, then it's like, well, let's go for it because we think this band is really cool.
Yeah, that makes sense. That would definitely make sense when you're trying to work with those type of bands. And I even saw stuff where I'll be talking to people or like setting up interviews, and it's funny at the different stages where you could just grab somebody to talk to and someone else. It's like, hey, you got to reach out to the agency I work with because we're going to do the promotion that week for the tour. But what I do is Brian, my problem is I just always geek out. Like I don't know how to act like I've been there before. Like I can be at a place, I could be at a show, and you could watch all these people want pictures and want me to do all this stuff and videos, right? And then the second, like I see somebody that I've grown up with, or like messaging, like if John Bush messages me back, like I go into like complete geek mode because I go back to those times, man. I go back to like fighting with people over the Bush era Anthrax, and then like Armored Saint, like Revelation to me, like one of the most underrated albums, like of all time. The album, the vocal delivery, it's just such a strong album. And I was always like, as you know this, depending on the year stuff came out, if it comes out in a different year, it could have sold 50 times more than it sold out of where the scene is and stuff. And like I always
Million
go
times.
like that, right? Like you gotta put that in perspective. And I feel like there's nothing wrong with always staying a fan of that stuff. Like I feel for me, like it just humbles me. And I was gonna ask you that. Do you have your heroes? Your rock heroes that you
Oh,
say, hey,
oh, of course. I mean, no, Iron Maiden's my favorite band of all time, and I love them. I've seen them all over 300 times, and I think they're still just as good today as they were 25 years ago. And I'm strangely enough, I'm really good friends with Rod Smallwood, which if you have told like 18-year-old myself, I would never believe that. And I met all the guys in the band. I know them a little bit, but the one guy I've only talked to him one time in my entire life was when Iron Maiden played in Houston in 1981, the first time they came to the U.S. I interviewed Steve Harris for my fanzine. That's the only time I've ever talked to him, because
wow,
it's one of those guys. I've talked to everybody. I don't get really starstruck or any of that stuff, but for him, yeah, I'd be like, him,
wow.
Tony Iommi, and probably Mario Lemieux Hockey. Like those are the three guys I ever met them. I'd just kind of be just stunned and in awe and not really be able to say anything.
It,
But yeah, but
and that's
I'm still just as big a fan. I mean, I love when the new Iron Maiden records come out,
awesome.
and I just did. Chris Jericho is a good friend of mine, and we're both Iron Maiden complete freaky nerds. So we always, whenever there's a new Iron Maiden album, I'm on his podcast dissecting the whole record and going over the whole thing. But it's fun. I still love it. I still love it when all these new records come out, and I
Yeah.
still love to go to concerts of certainly bands that I love that aren't even on Metal Blade or whatever. So yeah. I think I love the music just as much now as I always have.
Oh, it's clear as talking to you. Like I am so happy that this is the because I don't know, I'm like, what if he's like, whatever. I liked what I liked back then, but you could hear it, and I just, and I just to keep that label going through everything metal's been through, and just always that name is instantly known through everybody, and like seeing the diverse catalog too is what I always loved about Metal Blade. I mean, even back in the day, you had every type of metal all the time, because that's been, as we know, that if you pigeonhole something, it's great when times are great, right? It's great when that trend is great. It's great when that movement's going, but when it crashes, you're gonna crash right with it. And it's great to just see you and like, yeah, Maiden's one of those, like, I mean, I got my Maiden right here, and I got another Maiden on my leg. And Maiden's one of those bands. It's like their legacy. Like I don't want to hear it if people say, because I'm sure you hear that too. Like it doesn't sound like, no, it's not supposed to sound like 1987 or 1984. It's the scene's changed, everything's changed, and I stuck with that band through everything. I remember when Blaze Bailey came in. Like I still listened to Maiden. Like it's Iron Maiden.
Oh no, I was out on that.
Really?
that 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 didn't exist to me. Although I mentioned Jericho earlier, and he was always on me because I never listened to those records at all. In fact,
Wow.
so much so that I was at an Iron Maiden show when Bruce had come back, and they were playing "Sign of the Cross," and I never heard it before. So I asked my friends, like, "Oh, is this a new Iron Maiden song?" It's like, "No, it was on one of those Blaze Bailey
Yeah.
records." Oh, it's actually a good song. But he kept bugging me to listen to those records. I finally broke down and listened to both, and I forget which one is which, but whatever the first one was actually
Yeah.
a pretty good record. I think if Bruce
That's a good
sang on that
record.
record, would have been great. The one after that, not so much. But yeah, I was out on that. But the amazing thing about Maiden, and people can argue about whether the new stuff's good or not or whatever. But Maiden, Metallica, and Slayer are all bigger now than they've ever been. I
I
mean,
know.
Metallica's like 140,000 tickets a weekend.
Right.
Maiden's playing stadiums all over the world pretty much now, which I don't like because I don't like stadium shows. But it's great to see they're good. And Slayer. I mean, Slayer. Kerry King's one of my best friends, and when Kerry, dropped the chains and that's it, I was like, that's it. And he said,
Right.
that's it. So they're going to come back. They're going to come back. I go, I don't think they're going to come back. I mean, I won't say 0%, but I don't think they're going to come back. But none of us foresaw how much people miss them and how much because of that these promoters were offering them just insane amounts of money where you're like, I mean, you can't go to the wife and say, "Hey, yeah, I could make $100 million to play a
Right.
show," and she's like, "What are you doing?" So
Well,
they've come back, but they've come back like all the gigs they're playing are massively huge. I mean, it's insane how huge they are.
it's so crazy because, like, I was talking about it with my son, where it's like, man, I remember the time they played like Worcester Palladium and everything, and it's like, and then all of a sudden
Yeah,
they're in Hershey Park and they're in Louder Than Life. I loved both shows, but the Louder Than Life one was like, so just to see that amount of people and just everybody was into them. And and I don't go in pits a lot anymore, but I'm in the pit and I'm in there with the followers and we're just screaming Slayers and like everybody's having a good. I don't know how I survived that week because I was there. I had to fly to Hershey. I was at Silver Scream Con in Worcester, Massachusetts a few days. I was at WWE Raw and I was Metal Heart Madman. I was in like full. I was of pure adrenaline at the point when that thing ended. When that thing ended, Brian, like you saw just a broken man. You saw a guy that was beaten up. I was like, I gave 100. I remember screaming the last Slayers at loud. And actually, I had some kid at Hershey, and he's like, I'm a singer in a new band, and I want to see how if we could both yell Slayer. And I'm like, you had to catch me 2 weeks ago, man. I've filmed 8,000 of these right now. I am a walking just I'm dying here. I don't know how. And the adrenaline of the second Slayer starts and everybody in the place because everybody you could tell was beaten up, right? These are outdoor festivals. Everything's out of control. They come on though, and it's just hell on earth. But that they were both great shows, but that one at Louder Than Life to see them with that amount of people, and I just never thought. I mean, I had people too like finding me, give him. I had so many people like it was humbling for me, guys. I have to talk about me again. Brian's like, can this guy shut up about himself? I had him shut up about me because like these people are coming up to me and they're like, I made this for you. Like I can't believe. And I go, that's why I love our scene so much, right? I'm a guy on TikTok, and they're going like, I'm here to see you and Slayer, and I'm like, this is crazy. This is like psychotic for me. And it humbles me so much and I appreciate them so much. And that's the vibe I get from you with the metal fans is like without them, like where are we? Like these people, you gotta appreciate young and old.
100%.
They're just awesome.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I love going to shows. I love talking to kids, and it's just, yeah. I mean, it's a really great community. I was talking to because I have friends and like I have friends out here who are like on the morning news and in sports and all these other things,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting because when I look at what I'm dealing with in the business life and just even with all the people like. I mean, everybody knows everybody, everybody likes everybody. There's very little drama. I mean, there's going to be drama here and there, but for the most part, everything's really, really cool and really we all because
Right.
everybody, whether it's the labels or the bands, we all just love the music, and we're doing this because we
Yeah.
love the music so much. And you don't necessarily get that in other industries. So I consider myself really lucky to be working in this one where pretty much everybody gets along. And I mean,
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I had even like a slight disagreement with the band. And probably the only reason we did that would be if we thought a record didn't sound as good as it could have, or the sequencing was bad. But it's just little stuff. I mean, otherwise it's fairly easy to do all this stuff for the most part. But
That's
it's just
that was gonna be
again
one of my
because
questions.
we all love the music.
That was gonna be
I'm
one of my
sorry.
questions. Like, and it sounds like you work with the band, like do you have these difficult bands, but it's anyone knows the scene that's the exception when you meet somebody that's whatever or thinks too high and they don't usually last, as we know, right? Those are the guys that kind of fall apart
Yeah,
when they get too full of
yeah. I mean,
themselves.
yeah, yeah. You have to be. I mean, look. I tell all the young bands, like, the first thing that you should do is designate somebody in the band to be the business guy. And have that person, if they don't know anything about business, read a book or read a couple of books. Because what bands don't realize is that we work for you. We work for you. The lawyers work for you. The managers work for you. The agents, we all work for you. You're not working for us, because I think a lot of bands think they're working for us. No, we work for you. So ultimately, decisions that you make have to be yours, and you have to be understand that. Because if you're just going to listen to, what I'm going to say, what anybody else is going to say about anything, really, that's not good. Because you need to, especially musically, we never told bands what to do, anything. Just make the music that you want to make. Because if you talk to Slayer or Metallica or Guns N' Roses, any of these gigantic bands,
Right.
what do they make music for? Themselves. They don't make it for anybody else. They don't listen to anybody else. Because once you start listening to people, you get all screwed up in your head, and then and then it just doesn't work. And it's really the same thing in the business thing. Like, you need to make decisions for yourself. If you just start listening to everybody else, that's not a good path to go down. So, but that's, other than that, it's super easy to deal with all these bands. I mean, it's not. They said the amount of even over all these years, it's been rare that we've had like a big kind of, I wouldn't say blowout, but a big thing. Like the one moment that I can remember, I think we talked about it in the Cannibal DVD, was when they kicked out Chris Barnes and got a new singer, and I was pissed because first of all, they didn't tell me about it, and second of all, that they were just about to break through. Like, they were about to break through and be like this really big band. It's like, okay, we're gonna kick out the singer, and I'm like, wait, what? Of course, it worked out to be fine, but they ended up being right about everything, and we ended up with two bands instead of one, I guess. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty easy,
Guys, and that's that you're hearing it. You got to take these words of wisdom here. He knows what he's talking about. He's worked with everybody. He's giving you young bands, things that you got to think about. It. You do it for yourself all the time. The last thing I wanted to ask you, Brian, is the Las Vegas Museum. I know someone that was there. And they just loved it. They set their appointment. Also, they help. I helped them cheat. I helped them cheat because they got asked by your friend that was there, what band, not a metal band, is the biggest selling band of all time for metal. And I knew that so fast. I couldn't wait to say Goo Goo Dolls so fast. And they were like, nobody ever gets that thing right. Nobody ever gets. And I'm like, when I mean I've been following Metal Blade and I am a nerd for the music, and when you said I'm passionate, I am passionate, and that stuff just sticks in my head. I like to know everything about all the bands. I need to get out there. I need to get out there and visit. And I just wanted to know really quick, how'd that come about? And here you have some, I saw people told me firsthand you had some really sick stuff and costumes from bands and relics and everything.
Yeah. So, when I moved to Vegas, we realized that it's about a third of the price is in LA. So we had, just old archives and storage and that sort of stuff. So I said, why don't here, because we can save, a few $100 at least a month. So we're like, okay, so we, shipped it all out here, and I was kind of going through all of it because I never really spent time in looking through the storage thing, but I'm starting to look around, like, there's a lot of cool stuff in here. Kind of sucks of just sitting in a storage unit. So when I first moved out here, like one of my hobbies is real estate. So I like to buy real estate when it's a good time to buy. So I was buying a house here, and I was like, I'm just going to use this house as an investment. I'm going to put kind of make it like a little museum. So I put a lot of the stuff in there just when, friends would come in from out of town, or anybody would come in and, come over and take a look at it. It's in a regular house. And, guys like Charlie Benante and Joey Vera and stuff were over there, and they hey, can we take pictures and post it on the internet? I don't care, go.
Right.
And then they were getting all these comments, and people were like, hey, how come see this? We need to see this. This is really cool stuff. I'm like, oh, well, I don't think we can have 20 people over at a house somewhere. That's probably not going to go over very well with the neighbors. Right. So we kind of got the idea, well, maybe we could actually put it in an actual real building. And real estate out here is pretty inexpensive. So I found this really great unit that's right near the Strip. It's right near the Rio. It's like 5 minutes from the Strip, 5 minutes from the Rio. And it seemed like a little strip ball thing. And I said, why don't we just put it in here? Then the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
And for the 3.5 months, whatever, how long it was, where you weren't allowed to go anywhere or do anything, I would just leave my house in my car, drive over to the storage unit or drive to the museum and just start putting it all together. So for that 3.5 months, that's what I did, like literally every day, just start putting the whole thing together. So when you do go see it, about 90% of everything that's in there was I put it all together, put it all. The only things that I didn't do is like I don't like heights, so the stuff that's up high, we had somebody come and put all that stuff up, and there's a bunch of guitars there. We had professional put up the things for the guitars, but other than that, that's kind of what I did, and just really just for fun, and it's cool because it's Vegas, so there's a lot of other museums here. There's a Kiss museum. There's the like amazing museums. There's the Baggins Museum, which is a crazy horror museum, and there's now the punk rock museum out here, which we're actually partnering with and doing some stuff together. And I was very happy that. So when that happened, I was hoping for maybe one or two or three Metal Blade archives in there. I was in there the first time, and I did the tour, and I counted 16 different Metal Blade things in there. A lot of them were flyers and stuff, but still, I was like, well, cool. And now they have Trevor from Black Dahlia Murder's battle jacket in there, which is super cool too. So yeah, come there. And we also have our store. We had a store here that was in the Antique Mall of America, but we took it out of there because they changed management over there. It's kind of a pain. So now it's actually in the museum. So you can also buy vinyl, CDs, shirts, posters, rarities, all that stuff. All there. Go to metalblade.com/museum for all the info. Plug.
It's hey, when I'm just about to ask you, start plugging away, and it's been an honor to get to talk to you. I mean, I've been geeking out about this the whole time. I couldn't wait to talk to you. Of course, guys, before here, there's all kind of audio problems because that's the way my life works. Okay, guys, I'm a chaos. I don't do anything that ever works correctly. Everything's working perfectly up until right there. But it's an honor to talk to you. I want to say, as a fan, man, of you and the label and just everything you've done for the scene, and I, you always come across as so humble when you're talking to anybody. But man, you have given us so many memories. You've given me so many memories, and bands that needed homes, and bands that maybe left one label and you brought them in, and just keeping it alive, just keeping, like you were talking about real estate, and like you're still passionate about metal, and you're still passionate about Metal Blade, and it means so much to us fans. And no matter what I accomplish out there, I'm always gonna look up to you. I'm always gonna look up to you, man, because I just watched somebody that just rode that wave of metal, the ups and downs all these years, and it's still standing. And Metal Blade that's the label. Everybody knows the amount of bands I talk to that say to me, I want to get on Metal Blade. I want to get on this. They'll see me on this and be like, go ask them. Like, I ain't asking nobody nothing, everybody. Just so you know, you got to go do all the work from everybody. This guy gets hit up by a billion people about their bands and everything every day. You got to go earn it. You got to go show everybody what you got. And I just want to say, this is what happens to me, Brian. This is what happens to me. Just thank you for being on here, and just thank you for everything you've done for the scene. And it's been an honor. And if I get to meet you out in the field, I'd love to scream a Slayer in front of you one day. And if you ever need anything, if you need promo, I work for just to help it out, man. I would do anything for you. This sounds like a guy's tweaking and geeking out, which he is. But you just ever let me know if you need something, because you've already given me so much over the decades, and just thank you for everything. Friend. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. A couple things. First of all, thank you for the support. I mean, I can't do any of this. The bands can't do anything without the support of people like you and everybody out there that's listening to this stuff. So thank you for all the support for over all these years. And also, so I also have to plug my podcast. I have a podcast called 100 Songs that Define Heavy Metal that the Metallica people are involved with through their network. And we talk about cool songs every episode. And we need to reciprocate. You need to come on my podcast now and talk about a metal song. So
I'll be there. I'll be there. You just tell me when.
Yeah, well, we will do that very soon. But yeah, thanks for all that. And yeah, you got to get to Vegas.
Got to get to Vegas. Go subscribe to that podcast. I'm subscribed. And anyone that knows Metal Horror Madman, he's conceited. He doesn't follow people. He doesn't subscribe to people. I love that Brian's out here on TikTok. I don't know how I lost sight of that, going kind of stealthy out there. That makes me laugh so hard. Like the king of metal is out there. He's like, I'm watching. I know what's going on out there. It's so sick. That is so crazy to hear. That is awesome. And guys, this is the real deal. Go follow Metal Blade everywhere. Go hit up the store. They do crazy sales sometimes too. You'll get vinyl. You won't believe the sales. They do shirts, things like that. All your favorite bands. We've got royalty here, guys. Go support them. Support that podcast. And it's been a pleasure, my friend. And I got to do one more for the road. Without this guy, we wouldn't have our Slagel. Sure. Thanks again.
Thank you, my friend.